Welcome to my channel. Have you ever tried to speak English, but your mind suddenly goes blank? I know that feeling. But here's the truth. Fluency doesn't start with perfect grammar. It starts in your mind. Today, I'll show you how to think in English and finally break that wall. The first step to thinking in English. When I first tried to speak English, my mind went blank. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I could understand people, but answering them felt like climbing a mountain with no shoes. I was scared of making mistakes. I was scared people would laugh at me. If this happens to you, you are not alone. Many people around the world feel the same way. In fact, even people who speak English very well today once felt lost at the beginning. Fluency doesn't happen overnight. It starts with one small, brave step. One thing I learned early on is that fluency is not about knowing every word. It's about being able to think in English without stopping to translate. At first, that felt impossible. My brain always went back to my native language. I translated every word in my head. But slowly, I learned a simple truth. You don't need to be perfect to start. You need to start to be better. Think about this. When children learn their first language, they don't learn grammar books or memorize long word lists. They hear simple words every day. They repeat what they hear. They make mistakes. They learn naturally. You can learn English the same way. A simple daily habit. When I was a beginner, I made one simple rule for myself. Every morning, I say one sentence in English. It could be something very small, like, I wake up. This is my hand. Today is sunny. At first, it felt silly, but those small sentences became my bridge to English. Saying just one sentence told my brain, we are still learning. We are not giving up. This daily habit only took me 10 seconds each morning, but it changed everything. It helped me build trust with my brain. It helped me make English a natural part of my day. You don't need to study for hours to grow. Sometimes consistency beats intensity. Small steps every day are more powerful than one big step once a month. Words from a famous voice. One of my favorite quotes is from Nelson Mandela. He once said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." At the beginning of your English journey, it may feel too hard. Your brain may resist. But if you keep going, one day you will look back and say, "Wow, I did it." Another example is J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter. She once said that her success started with writing just one line every day. She didn't have a perfect plan. She just kept going. If one line can create a book, one sentence can create your fluency. Why thinking in English works? When you think in your native language and then translate into English, your brain has to work twice. That's why you freeze, forget words, or feel slow. But when you think directly in English, you remove the extra step. Here's a simple example. No translate, slow, mental effort. Think in English, I am hungry, natural, fast. It may take time to reach the second way, but the journey starts with one small moment, saying that sentence in your head first thing in the morning. My first morning sentence. I still remember my very first English thought. It was simple. I wake up. It wasn't long. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And that moment changed everything. I felt proud because it was the first time English came from my mind, not from a translation app or a teacher. After that, I started adding more, like, I open the window. The sun is bright. I brush my teeth. Soon, I realized my brain was slowly accepting English as a friend, not a stranger. How you can start today? If you're listening to this, I want you to try something with me. Tomorrow morning, as soon as you wake up, say one short sentence in English. You can say, I'm awake. Good morning. Today is my day. Say it out loud if you can, or whisper it to yourself. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect. What matters is that you begin. Over time, your one sentence will become two, then three, then a paragraph, then a conversation. Fluency begins with one thought. Learning English is not a race. It's a journey. A small daily habit will take you further than you think. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you know enough. The perfect moment is now. Today, make English part of your thoughts. Speak one sentence. Tomorrow, do it again, and again, and again. Little by little, your brain will stop translating. English will stop feeling strange, and you'll discover that the first step was all you needed to build your path to fluency. Remember Mandela's words, it always seems impossible until it's done. This is your beginning.
Getting stuck is not failure. When I started thinking in English, I had a big problem. I got stuck a lot. I would be in the middle of a sentence and suddenly my brain stopped. I forgot the next word. I forgot what I wanted to say. My mouth was open, but no sound came out. At first, I felt embarrassed. I thought, I can't speak. I'm not good enough. But later, I learned something powerful. Getting stuck is not failure. It's part of learning. Think about it. When a baby learns to walk, they fall many times. But no one tells the baby, you're a failure. Everyone smiles, cheers, and says, you can do it. Falling doesn't mean the baby is weak. It means they're learning something new. It's the same with English. When you get stuck, it doesn't mean you're bad at English. It means your brain is working hard to build a new connection. Why getting stuck happens. When you speak in your native language, words flow without effort. But when you speak English, your brain is building a new path, like creating a new road in the forest. At first, that road is small and rough. It's easy to trip and fall. But each time you try, the road becomes wider and smoother. So when your brain freezes, it's actually a sign that something good is happening. Your mind is learning. A language coach once said, "The moment you struggle is the moment your brain grows." This is true. Your brain doesn't grow when everything feels easy. It grows when you face a little challenge and push through it. My stuck moment. I still remember one day I was talking to a tourist at a cafe. He asked me a simple question. Where are you from? Easy, right? But at that moment, my brain suddenly went blank. I knew the answer in my language, but in English, nothing. I laughed nervously, looked at the floor, and finally managed to say, I'm from... And then the word came. He smiled. I smiled. We laughed together. He didn't care about my silence. He didn't care that it took me 5 seconds to answer. He was just happy I tried. That small moment gave me courage. I realized something important. People don't care if you're perfect. They care if you're real. You probably know J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter. Before she became famous, she got rejected by 12 publishers. She said, "Failure is not fun. It hurts. But without failure, I would not have learned what I needed to succeed." Getting stuck is like those rejections. It's not fun. It feels uncomfortable. But every time it happens, you grow stronger. What to do when you get stuck? Here's what helped me, and what might help you too. 1. Breathe. Don't panic. It's just a small pause, not the end of the world. 2. Use simple words. If you forget a word, say it another way. For example, if you forget delicious, you can say very good. If you forget frustrated, say not happy. Fluency is not about big words. It's about communicating clearly. 3. Smile or laugh it off. People respond to energy. When you smile, the conversation stays warm and friendly. 4. Keep going. Don't stop the conversation just because of one stuck moment. It's only a few seconds, not a failure. What I learned from that moment. That cafe moment changed me. After that day, every time I got stuck, I didn't feel shame anymore. I saw it as a door. Behind every stuck moment, there is a small victory waiting. Behind every silence, there's a new word being born. And when I pushed a little, when I stayed with English instead of switching back to my native language, that door opened. A famous quote to remember. The great inventor Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before he created the light bulb. When someone asked him about failure, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 1,000 ways that won't work." That's the mindset we need with English. Every time you get stuck, you're not failing, you're discovering one more way to grow. So the next time your brain freezes, remember, it's a sign of progress, not weakness. Don't run away from that moment. Stay with English. Use your hands. Use your smile. Use your heart. Even silence can be part of communication. Even mistakes can build confidence. Getting stuck is part of your story. And one day, you'll look back and say, that moment didn't break me, it made me stronger. This is the beauty of learning a language. It's not just about grammar or vocabulary. It's about courage. It's about growing. So if you get stuck, smile, breathe, and keep going. Your words will come back. And when they do, you'll be proud of yourself. My first real conversation in English. I still remember the first real conversation I had in English. It wasn't in a classroom. It wasn't part of any lesson or test. It happened on a normal day, in a small cafe, when I least expected it. At that time, I had been thinking in English every day. Every morning, I talked to myself in my head. I described my room, my breakfast, my plans. I repeated small sentences. I was slowly building a new voice in my mind. But even though I was practicing a lot, I was still afraid to speak to real people. I kept asking myself questions like, what if I forget my words? What if I say something wrong? What if they laugh at me? My brain was ready, but my mouth was still afraid. That day, I was sitting alone in a small cafe with my notebook and a cup of tea. I wasn't planning to speak to anyone. I just wanted to enjoy the moment. Then, something simple but powerful happened. A tourist walked in. He looked around, a little confused. Then he came to my table and said, "Excuse me, can I sit here?" I froze for 1 second. My heart started beating fast. I didn't prepare for this. But then, something amazing happened inside my mind. My brain didn't translate. It didn't search for words. It just answered, "Yes, of course." The words came out of my mouth naturally, almost without thinking. It was a very short sentence, but it felt like a victory. For the first time, English came out of me like it had always been there. A few minutes later, the tourist asked me, "Is the food here good?" And again, I answered without translating. "Yes, it's nice. I come here a lot." That was it. Not a long speech, not perfect grammar, but it was real, a real conversation. I smiled inside because I had just done something I was afraid of for so long. And the best part? He understood me. He didn't care about my accent. He didn't laugh at my mistakes. He just smiled back. We kept talking for a few minutes. He asked me where I was from. I told him. I asked where he had traveled. He shared some stories. I listened. I understood most of it. Sometimes I forgot words, but I kept going. And that's when I realized something very important. People don't expect perfect English. They just want to connect. That short conversation gave me more confidence than weeks of studying alone. It proved that I could actually communicate, even if my English wasn't perfect. It was like a door opening, a small step that changed everything. That night, when I walked home, I smiled the whole way. I felt proud of myself, not because I spoke perfectly, but because I spoke at all. It was a different kind of pride. Not the kind you get from winning a competition, but the kind that comes from knowing you're growing.
Later, I learned that many famous people experienced the same thing. For example, the writer Paulo Coelho once said, "The first step is the most important one. It changes everything." That simple cafe conversation was my first step. After that, I stopped waiting for the perfect moment to speak. I started creating small moments myself. In the shop, I asked, "How much is this?" At the bus stop, I said, "Excuse me, is this going to the city?" At the library, I asked, "Can I borrow this book?" These were not long conversations, but they were real. And every small conversation gave me a little more strength. My words became stronger. My fear became smaller. My confidence started to grow, like a small tree with deep roots. The lesson I learned that day is simple, but powerful. You don't need to be ready. You just need to speak once. Just one real conversation can give you the courage to keep going. So if you're listening to me right now and you're afraid to speak, don't wait for the perfect sentence. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start with something small. Say hello. Ask a question. Answer with what you know. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. And maybe like me, that small moment will be the beginning of a new chapter in your English journey. Remember, confidence is not built in silence. It's built in small conversations.
The power of mistakes. When people talk about learning English, they usually talk about success. They say things like, "I spoke fluently today," or "I finally understood a whole movie without subtitles." But we don't often talk about mistakes, and that's a problem. Because mistakes are not the enemy. They are your greatest teacher. I used to be terrified of making mistakes. Every time I wanted to speak, a little voice in my head would say, "What if you say it wrong? What if they laugh at you? What if you sound stupid?" And so many times, I said nothing. I stayed silent. I waited for the perfect sentence to appear in my head. But that perfect sentence never came. One day, I asked myself a simple question. What's worse, saying something wrong or saying nothing at all? And I realized silence was worse. Because when you speak and make a mistake, you learn. But when you stay silent, nothing happens. I remember one day in a cafe, a waiter asked me, "Would you like anything else?" I smiled and said, "Yes, I would like tea." He smiled kindly and said, "Oh, you mean you'd like some tea?" It was such a small mistake, just one missing word. But that moment stayed with me, not because I was embarrassed, but because I learned something real. After that, I never forgot the phrase again. I also made grammar mistakes all the time. I said things like, "he go to school," or "I can to swim." People corrected me. "He goes to school. I can swim." It happened again and again. But each correction was like a light turning on inside my brain. Here's something that helped me a lot. I stopped feeling ashamed of my mistakes. Instead, I started collecting them, like little lessons. Every wrong sentence became a step closer to speaking better. And guess what? Many famous people went through the same thing. Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba,
learned English by talking to tourists in Hangzhou when he was young. He made hundreds of mistakes. He couldn't pronounce words correctly, but he kept talking. He said in an interview, "If you never make mistakes, you will never improve." I learned English by making mistakes every single day. Imagine that. One of the richest and most successful businessmen in the world learned English not in a classroom, but on the street, with real conversations and plenty of errors. He didn't wait to be perfect. He just started speaking. And it's not just Jack Ma. J.K. Rowling once said, "Failure is not fun. It can be terrible, but without it, we would learn nothing." Mistakes are like your personal trainers. They don't feel comfortable, but they make you stronger. I remember another funny mistake I made. I was talking about the weather, and I said, "Today is snowing." My friend laughed kindly and said, "You mean it is snowing today?" I felt shy for 1 second. Then I laughed too, and because there was an emotion in that moment, I never made that mistake again. Here's why that works. When we make mistakes with emotion, when we feel embarrassed or laugh or feel something real, our brains remember better. That's why language learned through real moments sticks with you longer than language learned from a textbook. I used to mix up words a lot too. One time I said kitchen instead of chicken. Everyone laughed. I laughed too, but I never forgot it. That one mistake taught me the difference more effectively than any dictionary could. The truth is simple. Every fluent speaker you admire has made thousands of mistakes. They just didn't stop. That's the difference between someone who succeeds and someone who quits. Mistakes are not a sign that you're bad at English. They are a sign that you're learning. They mean you're brave enough to open your mouth and speak. They mean you're walking the path, not just watching it from a distance. So the next time you make a mistake, don't feel ashamed. Smile. Say thank you if someone corrects you. Repeat it the right way and move forward. Each mistake is like a brick. And if you keep collecting bricks, one day you'll build a strong house of fluency. Remember, silence builds nothing. Mistakes build everything. So go out there, speak to someone, say something wrong, laugh, learn, grow. Because your mistakes are not the end of the road. They are the road itself. When thinking in English becomes natural. One day, something amazing happened to me. I realized I no longer had to remind myself to think in English. I didn't have to push my brain anymore. I didn't feel tired when speaking. English was just there. Natural. Automatic. I didn't notice it at first. There was no big ta-da moment. It was quiet, simple. I was walking to the bus stop, listening to some music, and suddenly, I noticed my thoughts. They were all in English. I looked at a tree and thought, the weather is nice today. I saw a dog playing and thought, he's so cute. I saw a shop and thought, I should buy some coffee. No translation, no pause, no struggle. The sentences just came to me, like breathing. This didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, like a sunrise. At first, I had to force myself to think in English. Then it became a habit. And finally, it became natural. In the beginning, my sentences were short and simple. I'm hungry. It's raining. I feel tired. That was enough. Later, they became more complex. I think I'll go for a walk before it rains. I wonder if my friend will call me today. I didn't plan those sentences. My brain built them on its own. Here's something powerful I learned. Fluency is not about speaking fast. It's about thinking naturally. When your brain is already in English, your mouth just follows. You don't have to chase words anymore. They come to you. I remember reading a quote from the writer James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. For me, thinking in English became my system. I didn't need perfect grammar. I just needed daily habits. Talking to myself, describing things, listening to English, reading simple sentences. Those small habits built something bigger over time. I also learned from many successful language learners. For example, Elon Musk learned English as a child by reading comics, watching movies, and talking to himself. He didn't learn it by memorizing grammar tables all day. He made English a part of his daily life, just like breathing. You can do the same. You don't need to be in an English-speaking country. You just need to let English live inside your mind. Start with small things. When you wake up, say to yourself in English, "I'm awake." When you make coffee, say, "I'm making coffee." When you walk outside, say, "It's a beautiful day." These small lines may feel simple, even too easy, but they are powerful. They teach your brain to choose English first. At some point, I stopped noticing the switch. I no longer asked myself, should I think in my language or in English? My brain just picked English naturally, and it felt peaceful. Of course, I still make mistakes. I still forget words. I still speak slowly sometimes. But the difference is, now I don't panic. I don't feel ashamed. Because English is not something I study anymore. It's something I live in. It's like swimming. At first, every movement feels strange. You have to think about every step, how to breathe, how to move your arms. But once your body learns, you just float. You just move. The same is true with English. Once your brain learns to live in it, everything becomes smoother. I also noticed that thinking in English changed more than my language. It changed the way I see the world. When I speak or think in another language, I see new perspectives. I express emotions differently. I feel more open, more free. And that's why learning English is not just about grammar or vocabulary, it's about identity. Every sentence you think in English is a small step toward a bigger, braver version of yourself. So if you're not there yet, don't worry. I wasn't either. But here's the truth. If you keep thinking one small thought in English every day, you will wake up one day and realize you didn't translate anything all day. And that quiet moment will be your victory. Nelson Mandela once said, "If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart." When you think in English, you don't just use the language, you feel it. You live it. So keep going. Don't wait for perfection. Don't worry about speed. Build your habits. Trust the process. Your English will grow quietly, just like the sunrise.
Keep walking. Keep thinking. So here we are, at the end of this journey, or maybe the beginning of yours. If there's one thing I hope you remember, it's this. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep going. Think one sentence in English today. Think another tomorrow. Some days will be easy, some days won't, but all of them count. You are not falling behind. You are building something quietly, patiently, beautifully. Every mistake you make, every word you whisper in your mind, every silent sentence you create is proof that you are growing. So keep walking, keep thinking, keep believing. Your English doesn't have to be fast. It just has to be yours. And one day, you'll look back and smile because you didn't give up. If this message touched you, or if it gave you even a little bit of hope, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs it too. And if you want to grow with me on this journey, hit subscribe. Leave a comment in English, even just one sentence, and let's keep building your English voice together.